I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined Operation Freedom and Dave versus the MSM series that we started right around the election time period. And we'll be going back to our regularly scheduled programming here in the near future, where on Tuesday mornings I upload a video to YouTube, Dave versus the MSM, and a different video to Rumble on our Operation Freedom channel. Today's topic is going to be about saving America, because we took a huge step forward in that endeavor, saving America, on November 5th, 2024. Now, my concern is, and many people's concern, is that we all worked hard to get to that promised land, if you will, of removing us from this occupation that has occurred of our constitutional republic. But we can't go back to the couch. We can't go back to becoming complacent. We have to continue on our freedom-driven operation of restitution of our constitutional republic. When I say occupation, our constitutional republic has been under occupation by the syndicate for not just the past 4 years, although they upped their game over the past 4 years. But I want to take you back to when I first went on air with the radio show Operation Freedom in October of 2010. One of my first statements back then was our country was forever changed when Ronald Reagan walked out of the Oval Office in January of 1989. Because what I said in 2010 was, every person that has occupied that office, Bush Sr., Clinton, W., and Obama at that point, 2010, has been owned and operated by a criminal syndicate. Many people found that to be conspiracy theory at the time, back in 2010. Now it's, well, okay, that makes sense. Well, yeah, conspiracy theory is really conspiracy reality. But that statement still holds true. But it went beyond 2010, right? When I made that statement. Throughout Obama's occupation of our constitutional republic, a globalist cult puppet, not upper level, upper middle level. Important to know that, right? Obama's handled by Valerie Jarrett. Valerie Jarrett is handled by the banking syndicate. The banking syndicate is handled by the banking families. Again, because I'm one of the only people who talk about these names, because you get in a lot of trouble when you say their names. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Czars, the Pinkases, the Warburgs, the Siefs, the Loebs, and the very top of the pyramid, the Payseur, P-A-Y-S-E-U-R. Search it. Family. We talk about it extensively on the subscription side of DaveJanda.com on topics I cannot discuss on social media platforms or on the radio because of the choke points that are still there. But throughout Obama's years, that takes us to 2016. Now, from 2016 to 2020, we had a bit of a respite, a setback for the globalist syndicate because of the presidency of Donald Trump. But remember, Trump had a tremendous amount in his first term of deep state neocon players in and around him that subverted his presidency. Right, between the Russia thing and the this impeachment, that impeachment, right? Those players, and it's miraculous that it wasn't completely paralyzed, but it was diminished, and we know that because when their puppet was installed, contrast that to elected, installed in January 2021. With a stroke of a pen, with executive orders, much of what President Trump had tried to do and had accomplished in spite of the syndicate was wiped out. So we have been under occupation for 35 years, up until November 5th, 2024, when, if we play our cards right and we continue to be peacefully active, then occupation is going to come to I believe, much quicker than people anticipate end. And the reason is because the cult has constructed this house of cards. Not house of granite, house of cards. That's built on quicksand. And that plays in our favor in saving America. Before the election, Elon Musk was criticized for this statement. I've never been materially active in politics before, but this time I think civilization as we know it is on the line. Oh, that's hyperbole. That's just off the... No, actually, he was right on target. You know that. I know that. A lot of the people that are in your family and a lot of people that you know would say, oh, please. And they only said that because they were really ignorant of what was going on and in the takedown of our constitutional republic. He went on to say, if we want to preserve freedom and meritocracy in America, then Trump must win. Well, that's exactly what happened. And someone who is a former prosecutor recently penned the following. If Trump had not won on November 5th, 2024, here's what would have happened. Trump would have died in prison. Many of his top advisors and supportive would have died in prison. I believe that was my fate, based on the feedback I was getting up until about a week before the election from players within the cult. Most big influencers would have been banned. Guns would have been seized. Amnesty for illegals would have occurred across the board. The Senate filibuster would have been gone. The Supreme Court would have been packed with Marxist judges. The elections would have been, would have been permanently manipulated, rigged. And World War III and Civil War was on deck to occur. The criminal regime occupying our country would have used the full force of the government to crush the MAGA movement and take over America completely. They know the rebellion is here, and they would have accelerated all the worst plans to destroy America and her people, but God saved America. Yeah, it's true. God did. We, the people, saved America. And frankly, we might have just saved the world. All true. It's interesting, the aftermath. The globalists are rats eating each other. It's kind of sad, but I find it interesting to watch. Maybe even get a laugh every so often. Because they're in denial. Absolute denial. And their rationalization is, 76 million people, they're just, I don't know, whatever you want. They're racist, they're sexist, they're misogynist, they're the Neanderthals, right? That's what they're saying. Just watch The Witch's Brew on The View. No, don't do that. Save yourself. Don't. That's just, no. It's like getting a colonoscopy. Don't do it. Don't. But Van Jones, a Marxist, a globalist, very integral in the Obama era and before. I've been battling this guy for 15 years. He came out and and admitted that the globalist Democrats, remember, not left, right, up, down, up being freedom, down being oppression, and everybody on the globalist side is on that down axis. People that have D's, people that have R's. Okay? Globalist Democrats are idiots, he says. Idiots, his own. So, first time I ever agreed with this guy. They're not just idiots so much. They're criminals, okay? He said, we got outflanked by the conservatives who turned their phones into political weapons. But it was more than phones. It was laptops. It was desktops. Yeah. Good job, Internet warriors. Quote, this is Van Jones, quote, "We got beat because the Republicans and the conservatives built a different media system." It's called the independent media. Yeah. A different media system that had to do with online activities, had to do with podcasts. Oh. Had to do with a streaming platforms. Oh. We were making fun of Donald Trump and those around him for having thrown away his ground game and doing some weird stuff online. We thought they were idiots. It turns out we are the idiots. He went on, "We woke up in a body bag because while we were knocking on doors, they were making these phones and laptops and desktops into 24-hour-a-day political weapons for themselves and their movement. We got outflanked, outplayed, outbeat by people who told us the entire time that they knew what they were doing." And that's in spite of us being censored, targeted, and threatened. Those choke points are still in place. Just look at the view counts that we get on our videos. Fraud. Why? Because there are deep state choke points impregnated in all of these platforms, social media platforms. They're impregnated everywhere. Hopefully, soon to be released from their platforms. But there's an umbrella entity through the State Department called the Global Engagement Center that also, we've traced it through our IT experts, that in particular block this, what we do. But in spite of that, because of you, the message we deliver through our radio show every Sunday, through our 4 to 5 videos at davejanda.com, through what we do with YouTube and Rumble, you in this bucket brigade of truth and freedom took our information and you brought it to those. Many people were like, "Oh, I don't want to." No, please do. And I thank you for that, because you saved America, because you got off the couch, because you put it all on the line. You. Yeah. And you combine you with what a number of us are platforms that are not controlled opposition do. You want to know who's controlled opposition? Who's kind of getting funded by the bad guys, by the cult? Those that aren't suppressed. Yeah, those that miraculously seem to have the view counts that are exponential, that continue to grow, and their platforms aren't being stripped of followers like this channel gets stripped of followers, gets stripped of view counts. Any entity that is getting promoted is controlled opposition. Remember that. Be careful. Elon Musk again after the election. The American people have made it absolutely clear that they utterly reject the current ruling class. Radical reform of government is what they want. And frankly, I believe it's what we're going to get based on at least some of the appointments we're seeing and nominations from President Trump. You know, you hear about FAFO, F around, find out. Well, right now, folks, the cult is going into the finding out phase. And I believe what they're in the process of finding out, their denial, their anger, their depression, well, I think, the Kubler-Ross, the 5 stages, right? I think they're going to work their way through those 5 stages. The 5 stages of death and dying. The cult is dying. Mm-hmm. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. The 5 stages. That's where they're going. You know, it's what's very, very interesting is that, and I have to be careful on how I put this on these platforms, okay? Because the choke points, both in YouTube and in Rumble. Yes, there are choke points there. Yeah. It's not the free-wielding thing you hear about from people who have a financial interest in it who are pushing that platform. What they pulled, this installation operation, let's put it that way, in 2020. Now, let's say they did not pull it. Because on November 5th, 2024, President Trump won his third, not second, third presidential election. The evidence is clear. And all you have to do is just look at the numbers, right? So look at this. In 2008, Obama got 69 million votes. In 2012, he got 65 million votes. In 2016, Hillary got 65 million votes. This time around, Harris got 69 to 70 million votes. But in 2020, 81 million people reportedly voted for a guy who hid in his basement, who had 30-year documented cognitive issues, who also had his daughter's diary that had been confirmed by the FBI out there, and a laptop which confirmed that there was a lot of money laundering activity going around with a lot of countries. 81 million. Now, as much as I dislike the Marxist Obama, the guy has charisma. Much of it kind of fluffed up by the bought-off lamestream fake media, but he still has charisma. Oh, Biden got 16 million more votes than Obama? When he was hiding in the basement, when he would go and do events, there would be, seriously, 6 to 12 people there? But imagine if they didn't pull off their operation in 2020. Let's say Trump remained in office. What would November 5th, 2024 now look like? Okay, Pence would have been the nominee because he'd have been the vice president for 8 years, right? Pence would have lost in a landslide. Zero doubt on that. Zero. So now, because they would have stymied Trump for another 4 years, and the occupation would have continued, and we would not have our Saving America kickoff date of November 5th, 2024. Now we're facing 4 new years of the new and improved, hopefully less globalist infested, new administration of Trump. Followed by, and this is what they really also worry about, 8 years of J.D. Vance. So the globalists' pronouns, even AOC has now deleted her pronouns off of Twitter. Interesting. Our pronouns are we and one, and the globalist pronouns are completely effed. Paul Craig Roberts, a guest on this platform on a number of occasions, former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury under Ronald Reagan, penned after the election a column entitled "A Good Morning in America." I awoke this morning to Donald Trump's victory. Apparently the election was not close enough for the syndicate, if you will, and media to steal, as they had previously done. Trump's victory is not only a defeat for the Democrat globalists, but also a defeat for the ruling elite that pulls the strings of both political parties, and a defeat for the American media that serves as an enforcer for the official narratives that serve the agendas of the elite. Trump's victory is also a victory for the American people who love their country and respect the Constitution. It's their victory over the left-wing intellectuals in universities and law schools who have been working diligently to overturn the First and Fourth Amendments that are in the way of their revolutionary intentions that are clearly anti-American. America now has a chance for renewal if Trump doesn't blow it in forgiving his enemies who still intend to destroy him. What's left of the Democrat Party is really no longer a political party. It's an ideological party with ideological agendas. It sees itself as a revolutionary force and has no intention of political compromise. If Trump repeats the mistakes of his first term, his victory will be pissed away. Well, hopefully, with the addition of folks that are truly devoted to a constitutional republic. And you know who those people are because they're the ones getting the most grief upon their nominations, right? The ones who get the most grief, the howling, are the ones that are the most feared. Those that have, this is fine. When you have John Bolton saying, this Marco Rubio at state is fine. And when you have this Mike Walls, his national security advisor, is fine. And when you have that going on, well, we've got to be careful. And please don't give me, I used to, in the first Trump administration, when I talked to his staff, they'd say, Dave, we know you're critical of a lot of people around the president and their globalist ties and their influence that they could exert. But remember, Abraham Lincoln, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And here's what I used to say to them. Still do. I've already said it a couple times this week to his folks. Just remember, Dave, Abraham Lincoln. I said, well, let me ask you something. What did that philosophy get Abraham Lincoln? Because if you go 20 miles down the street from me into Detroit to the Henry Ford Museum, there's a rocker there, right? And in that rocker is the rocker Lincoln was sitting in Ford's Theater in D.C. And when you look at that rocker, there's a lot of dried blood on it. What had got Lincoln, that philosophy, was shot in the head. So whenever somebody says, it's a trigger point for me, okay? Well, Lincoln's philosophy was have your friends close and your enemies closer. Not going to fly in Dave's world. From James Fennell and Bradley Thayer, Trump's victory saved America. President Donald Trump's election victory on November 5th was an epic event in American history. A new American coalition, traditional Republican voters, united with lower middle class, working class, African Americans, Hispanics, and white women, provided the monumental victory. According to the exit polls, a whopping 72% of Americans understood that their country was on the wrong path. That's right. Exit polls said that. 72%. This is off the rails. How did they realize that? They didn't get that from the bought off lamestream fake media. They got that from the independent media. That's right. And you networking that information. You. You had a huge role in this. The deeper cause of how America arrived at this point is the embrace of Marxism by the globalist Democratic Party, and thus its increasing totalitarianism and alienation from the American people. The American people saw this effort to continue the fundamental transformation of America as Obama identified it on the eve of his 2008 election and finally rejected it resoundingly. Prospectively, there is so much that must be accomplished to repair the great costs that the Biden-Harris, and remember, 35 years, not just Biden-Harris. Yeah, they were integral, but 35 years. Has inflicted upon the American people. As Trump has already stated in the immediate aftermath of his historic election victory, his actions will be to, quote, dismantle the deep state and return power to the American people, end quote. Likewise, the second Trump administration will address inflation, uncontrolled illegal immigration, economic stagnation, and the enormous national debt that risks destroying the republic and the escalating wars. Trump's victory also provides the opportunity to save more than America. It provides the chance to defend Western civilization, upon which America's foundation, history, politics, culture, and intellectual life are anchored. The American people gave Trump his victory because they saw that Trump's triumph is America's. That's right. Enter General Flynn. A couple days after the election, he penned an article as well. I want to give you a brief highlight from it. Democrat globalists, if you're wondering why America voted for Trump, allow me to explain. The truth is, the American people are sick of your garbage. You ruined our nation and our culture. You openly mocked, belittled, and discriminated us, then called us all kinds of names such as racist, misogynist, Nazis. And then we started to notice. You defiled and corrupted all of our great institutions to include the media, social media, tech, academia, intelligence, health, pharma, Hollywood, entertainment, sports, and some everything. You weaponized every aspect of American life and used it to push your insane far-left agenda down our throats. Well, the American people are awake to the scam and the true evil going on around us, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. So we hired Donald J. Trump and his team of patriots to rectify the situation and bring America back to her greatness. This is the reality of the situation. You are the bad guys. And you have been deceived, and you have also been passing on that deception to every person in our country and around the world. The sooner you wake up to it, the sooner you can join us in repairing this nation. Or you can choose to deny reality and spend the rest of your lives consumed by hate, which is based on lies. The choice is yours. Signed, General Michael Flynn, a true American patriot. Yeah. And we're all patriots because we stood our ground. And in the face of overwhelming odds, face of imprisonment, we kept networking information, delivering the necessary medicine that was needed to restore a constitutional republic. And you were a huge part. I truly believe in the decades to come, historians, yes, some of the historians will try to, rewrite things, what really happened. But there will be a subset of historians that's come to the conclusion, if it were not for the masses of people who were not deceived, who stood their ground, who then networked information to others, who got their information from independent sources, as Van Jones said, they were the ones who saved America. Be very proud of yourself. Very proud. And continue your efforts for truth, for freedom, for networking, continuing to network, even to those that to this day still tap into the bought-off lamestream fake media. Since the election, the ratings at CNN and MSNBC are down 60, 70, 80%. Now they're talking about selling MSNBC. They're talking about possible sale of CNN. Chris Wallace, globalist from CNN, has now been terminated. They're talking about cutting out all the high-priced whores talent, they call it, at CNN. Now, folks, you saved America. You brought about this awakening. Don't stop. Because we have 35 years to undo. It's not going to take us 35 years to undo it. It's going to take some time. But we are obligated to undo all of it for every child in this country, to ensure a bright future based on liberty, based on freedom. I thank you. I thank you for saving America. I hope you'll join us at davejanda.com, where we try to save America and the world, and with the medication of freedom and truth and information that you'll never get through the bought-off lamestream fake media. I do 4 to 5 video format shows at davejanda.com on issues I can't talk about on the radio because of choke points. Not at Wham, they're open, but the FCC or on social media platforms. Please join us. Our subscription side is, we have a lot of free information there at davejanda.com, but our subscription side is 30 cents a day, $9 a month for priceless content that puts you months, if not years, ahead of the curve. Become a part of our freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.